I'm Clarke Speaks, the catastrophic injury lawyer. Welcome to The Verdict. But the circumstances that would warrant punitive damages are exceptional, but they're so egregious that if you think about it and if you listen to it and if you really look at the whole case, it makes sense, right? This is a situation where this company knew that their product was not stable enough and was likely to injure people. And they chose to continue to distribute it because it saved them a few dollars, even though it would cost her severe burns, hospitalization, surgery, permanent injury, and a lot of pain and suffering. That was completely unnecessary. The same thing happened years ago with respect to a car that they made where the gas tank was located in a place that was likely to cause injury in a rear-end collision, which they knew would happen on a regular basis. Everybody knows that rear-end collisions happen. People were, driving and they hit somebody. They were looking at something else, radio or whatever, and they hit the person in front of them. There was one vehicle, and they knew from their studies that if the vehicle was rear-ended, it was likely to burst into flames because of the positioning of the gas tank. Well, they could have changed that and taken away that threat and danger, and they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. Instead, they were like, hey, that's going to cost us more money. So it's going to cost us more money to change it than it is to pay the lawsuits from the people that are injured. And the way that these people are injured, they burned to death in a fire, or at least they burned severely in a fire. So they made a business decision, as corporations do, to keep it the way it was instead of doing a redesign that would cost more than paying the claims. And so that's kind of one of the seminal cases in the idea of punitive damages. And so punitive damages is one way where you can be awarded big dollars for a claim. It's super rare and it almost never happens. And when it does happen, it happens in a situation such as this, where it's not just that people were negligent and made a mistake. It's that people made a conscious decision to ignore the very probable result that somebody was going to get injured by. So those kinds of cases are exceptional in that way, the punitive damage cases. But my point is that a lot of times this social media post that I saw was brought by the Insurance Information Institute, and it made it seem very much like that insurance that personal injury lawyers are the bad guys in this situation, and because they sort of make people believe that they're entitled to these huge settlements. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, you know what? I do believe that is probably funded by the insurance companies. I believe that is largely nonsense. That to think that I'm bullying the insurance companies into paying millions of dollars for claims that are worth thousands of dollars is completely ridiculous. Patently ridiculous. Anybody who's in this industry would say that. And the reason is because it's not up to them or me. It's up to what I can prove to a jury. It's up to 12 people. Even cases that resolve, most cases, just to give you an idea, most cases resolve 90% of our cases, 90% of claims in the industry, I would think, resolve before a case is ever filed in court. So in other words, somebody's in a wreck or hurt at work or whatever, slips and falls or is attacked by a dog. We put the case together. We just send it to the insurance company. 90% of claims are resolved right there, right at that stage. 10% go to litigation. We have to file a complaint and go to court and do those types of things. But all claim value is determined by us putting together the evidence, examine it in a form that makes us able to project and see what would happen if we showed this to a jury. What would they do? And so this is a jury of 12 people who are going to be fairly picked, under the watch of a judge who's going to make sure that I ask fair questions and the defense lawyer asks fair questions. And then these jurors are going to be able to deliberate, hear the evidence, and make a decision as to value. And so a lot of times, and I've had trials covered by the media in the past, and I'm always surprised by the fact that it seems a lot of times like the media has some kind of agenda. They want to make it seem like a person was guilty and set free, or maybe they were innocent and they were put in jail, or a person was barely hurt and because there's no real story where justice is served. A person was injured, they received money. A person was guilty, they were convicted. A person was innocent, they were set free. There's no real story in that. So instead, what happens is the story is in the exception, is in the thing that makes people upset and excited. And you can think about it. If the weather guy gets on the weather report and says, hey, it's going to be sunny and 72 on Wednesday, how many people are going to sit there and watch that whole forecast? Not very many. But if there's a hurricane coming, or there's tornadoes coming, everybody's going to sit and watch. If someone puts out a post that says there's an election coming and these are two candidates who are running and there's going to be a vote and then the winner will be the president, nobody's going to watch that. But if you say candidate X is great and you're terrible if you don't believe that, or candidate Y is awesome and you're terrible if you don't believe that, then you're going to elicit, a lot of more people are going to post, comment, share, and all that. We respond more to controversy than we do to normalcy. And so this is kind of what we see when we're seeing these media coverages. I have tried lots and lots of cases. I have had juries disappoint me, but I have never come out of a trial thinking that jury didn't know what they were doing. They were terrible. They weren't paying attention. They without fail have tried to do the right thing in every case I have ever been associated with, personally. I'm sure there are exceptions to that rule. I can think of exceptions to that rule. But in general, that's the case. So it begs the question, what happens to cause a case to be worth $10 million, $20 million, $30 million? And that's a legitimate question. And the first thing I would say about that is most cases aren't worth that. In fact, almost all cases aren't worth that. We have more high-value cases than anybody that I know, probably except for a friend of mine in Texas who has a bigger shop than we. But most of our cases are worth much less than that. In order to have a case that's worth millions of dollars, someone has to be very seriously hurt. Like, this is not like winning the lottery. It's not like if you see someone who recovers $10 million for a claim, the thought process is probably like, wow, how fortunate they get $10 million. The reality is could not be further from the truth. In order for them to recover $10 million, they have lost $10 million. That's the nature of personal injury business. It's the nature of civil litigation. Now, you can only recover what was taken from you. So then the question is, how they didn't have $10 million. How was that taken from them? The things that are compensable are going to be medical bills, lost wages, permanent injury, loss of use, future lost income, future medical expenses, pain and suffering, and those types of things. Pain and suffering is gray, right? Like, what is that worth? There's no formula for that. The rest of these things are very quantifiable. And in order for us to recover that from a jury, we have to prove it, right? And the way that we prove it is we have experts. So for every case that we have that has high value, or even some cases that aren't as high value, we have, for example, for lost wages, past and present, we'll have an expert. This expert, the other side may have an expert too, right? It's not. It just shows if we're out of work, the fact is we're not going to get any money, and we have to have money to live. If a mother who takes care of her kids is injured in some kind of accident and she can't work for a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe forever, that money adds up. Then it's discounted to present value because $1 today is worth more than later. So it doesn't add up to as much as you might think because it's got to be discounted to present value. And then we would say, okay, well, what other kinds of economic damages might a person have to, I mean, might there be? And so that economist may calculate, okay, well, this person can no longer cut their grass or do their groceries or but in order for you not to be able to cut your grass or go get your groceries, you can't have a sprained ankle. You can't have a dislocated knee. You have to have a permanent injury that it negatively, and you have to have a medical opinion from a treating physician who is going to say this person can't do these things anymore, right? And then you might have to have so in each of these cases where you have uh, a $10 million claim, for example, you would have to have, I would argue, in excess of $1 million in medical expenses, or you would have to have, lost limbs or be permanently paralyzed or immobilized in some kind of way, or have been, badly burned in a fire or something like that. Nobody would trade places with somebody who's in that situation. That's not true. I mean, so the idea that people are just getting huge sums of money for tiny injuries is patently false. It's just not true. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us to stay up to date with our weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.